Mexico, #1, the best place in the world to retire. International Living has just voted Mexico #1. Let's meet the people that live in Mexico, that retired in Mexico.
Good morning, America! From the deserts to the sea, from the mountains to the snow, you are tuned in to the Johnny Punish Show. Produced by the Veterans Today Network and BTN Radio. Brought to you by HireVeterans.com, America's job board for U.S. veterans. Let's get this show rockin'!
I spent all my years fighting for a place in the sun. And I hit the ground running, thinking it was all about fun.
Hello?
Hey, Kevin Paulini, what's going on, man?
Not much, Mr. Punish. How about you?
Fantastic. You ready for an awesome show?
I'm ready for a credible show.
Credible's better than awesome. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, let's talk about Lake Chapala. You know, there's a lot of people in Canada and the U.S. and around the world that are looking for a change, for a new life, a new way. Maybe because of politics, maybe because of economics, maybe because they're retiring. Lake Chapala historically has been one of the best places on planet Earth for Canadians and Americans to go and retire. And we want to know why in 2017. Why is that place really, really a great place?
Well, there's several reasons, Johnny. It starts with the weather. You know, the weather is the first draw here with an average annual temperature of 75 degrees. It's the place to go. Always sunny. It's always beautiful, blue skies, warm. You know, we do get our cold nights in the winter, but other than that, the weather is usually the first draw. And then they get here, and it's the culture. The culture is the second draw. You know, the friendliness of the people. And because this area is so used to foreigners being around, whether it be the artsy-fartsy people that started, you know, back in the 40s, to the people who are just looking for a good, calm, peaceful life. And they get that here. You know, the Mexican culture is very laid back, very relaxed, and they love it.
Now, Lake Chapala is the largest lake in all of Mexico, correct?
Correct. Natural. It's the biggest natural lake in Mexico.
Okay, describe for our listeners, you know, what the view is over there, because it's a lake. What's the attraction of the lake?
Well, the lake has several factors. I mean, just the beauty alone when the sun is shining on it, and, you know, there's a few waves and you get those twinkly little, they look like diamonds sparkling. From that to the mountains that surround it, it's just beautiful no matter how you look at it. The first time you drive in here from the airport, you come over the mountains and there's the lake just glittering under the sunlight. It's just beautiful. And the lake has a second benefit that not a lot of people know about, but it really does help regulate the weather. You know, Guadalajara, which is 45 minutes away, they get hotter in the summer and colder in the winter. So with that large body of water here, we get that regulation of the weather because of the water.
Let's talk money. A lot of Canadians and Americans are coming to Mexico because of their, you know, they want to retire. They want to live a better life, a higher standard of living. What's the standard of living in Lake Chapala area? The Canadian dollar, the American dollar. How is that working right now? Where's the benefits and the downsides?
Well, the benefits definitely are for the Americans because the dollar is so strong. Right now, you know, if you counted the dollar even on par with the peso, would be $1 equivalent to 10 pesos. Right now, it's actually $1 is equivalent to 20 pesos American. On the Canadian side, their dollar is worth about 14 pesos, so not as strong as the Americans, but still considerably stronger than, you know, what they would find, you know, elsewhere on the planet. How does that help? Well, Americans can live like kings around here, you know, with an average rent, you know, of $600 to $700 for a nice rental, or even the average price of a decent home here at $175,000. To buy a beautiful home, it's hard to beat. Where do you get that value anywhere else but here? And here is considered a very expensive area in Mexico. But still, when you compare it to what you might be paying in Canada and the US, it's considerably cheaper. And the cost of living in general is cheaper too. Food is cheaper, utilities are cheaper, your property taxes are cheaper, healthcare is cheaper. Well, for the Americans, at the most part, Canadians, it's a socialist system that is included in their taxes. But if you had to pay out, a lot of people just self-insure here because the cost of doctors and whatnot is so cheap. So those would be your advantages. Disadvantages, at this point, I really can't pick out any disadvantages except that, if you don't speak Spanish. But if it's money-wise, I honestly don't see a disadvantage to living here.
Okay, speaking Spanish, obviously in Lake Chapala, there's so many Americans and Canadians, you can get along without speaking Spanish. Overall, it'd be better to speak Spanish, or at least to try to learn a few words, right?
Well, in this area, again, because they're so used to the foreign community being here, English is, if you only know English, it's very easy to get along here. But if you do try or learn some Spanish, they really respect that. It's their language, it's their culture. And if they see you trying, they'll try even harder to accommodate you. It's just respect for them and their culture, right?
Now, Lake Chapala, as a city, as a town, a lot of people are concerned with safety. I hear this all the time, not so much from Canadians, but from Americans. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is safety. Am I safe? Is there going to be violence everywhere I go? Address that issue, because that's a common comment from Americans.
My first statement to those people are always, what are you coming here to do? Are you coming here to retire and enjoy life? Or are you coming here to be a drug dealer? If you're coming here to be a drug dealer, don't. It's going to be bad. If you're coming here to retire and relax, I couldn't think of a safer place to be. I have two children. They're 16 and 13. They take the bus on their own, and I feel totally confident. I walk all over the place here and have no safety issues whatsoever. Is there crime? Of course there's crime. There's crime everywhere, but most of the crime here is petty stuff. If you're going to leave a $500 camera on the seat of your car, chances are your windows are going to get broken. The same goes for Guadalajara, but the places that people frequent in Guadalajara tend to be the tourist areas or the nicer areas. They're not going into the hood. In fact, what city on the planet would you go into the hood, kind of thing. The overall safety here is fantastic, especially for foreigners.
Yeah. So the issue is, it's a non-issue basically.
It's a non-issue. I mean, there's a million Americans in Mexico right now as we speak, and there's 17 or 20 of them that have been killed either in car accidents or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. 20 people out of a million a year. Give me any city anywhere on the planet that happens. Right.
Okay, because that's the issue, that the number one issue that I hear is safety. They're really concerned about safety. I usually tell them, wow, the last time I was robbed was in Los Angeles. So what can I tell you?
Yeah, right. Who wants to walk around Chicago at night?
It's important, and we need to address that to let them know that, hey, Mexico is a safe country. Obviously, if you're a drug dealer and competing to sell drugs up to the north, then yeah, you're going to have issues. But if you're not a drug dealer, I personally have never seen a drug dealer. Now, I know they're out there. I just never seen them. So, they're not part of my life. Agree with that statement?
Absolutely. I've lived here in the area for 17. This summer will be 18 years. And, I hear of violence. I see it in the news once in a while. Have I seen it myself? No, never seen it. Not involved in that crowd. So it's not really going to be an issue. Yes, there's violence amongst them, but again, have I ever seen it? 18 years. I've driven to the border at least 40 times. Never had an issue.
So you drive from Lake Chapala to which border? The U.S. border?
Yeah, the U.S. border. I've been to Laredo at least 35 times. Been up through Nogales 6 or 7 times. Never had an issue.
So for Americans driving down with their cars, no issue whatsoever?
No issue whatsoever. Now, they tell you not to drive at night, which is just common sense because, the highways aren't very well lit outside of the cities and stuff. But that warning is more for cattle and livestock on the road than anything.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually true. About 15 years ago, my brother-in-law borrowed my car and drove from Mazatlan to Culiacan, and at 2 in the morning, and he actually dangerously hit a cow, and it totaled the car. He was, he was hurt a little bit, but not too much. And the thing is that people don't realize on the quotas, those are paid roads, so you pay a toll to be on that road, whether it's 50 pesos or whatever. But when he totaled the car, that's insurance. So with the receipt of the 50 pesos that we paid for, which is like $2.50, with that receipt, they actually gave us a check for $11,000, which was the value of the car. You believe that?
Oh, I've heard of that several times, because that is an insurance. You're 100% correct. They've paid for hospital bills, towing bills, car repairs. I've never experienced that myself. I've never had any troubles, but people that I do know that are on those highways and they have had trouble, the highway takes care of everything for them. It might take a couple of months to get a big payment back, like your $11,000, but it does happen.
Yeah, I think it took us, if I remember correctly, less than a year, maybe 6 months, 8 months, something like that to get the check.
Yeah, like I say, it can take time. My experience, I've heard, for medical costs, it took 3 to 4 months to pay, but it came through. They definitely paid out.
In the United States right now, they're talking about getting rid of what they used to call Obamacare, or the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which means there's going to be 40 million people left without health insurance, and health costs are going to be passed over to the privatizations. So health costs will probably go even higher for Americans. Speak to the issue of self-insuring here in Mexico, and give us some examples of what it costs for, let's say, a general checkup at the doctor.
A general checkup with just a regular MD family doctor will cost you about 250 pesos, which is about $12 US. If you wanted to go see a specialist, they're a little bit more expensive. You're going to be in the tune of 700 to 800 pesos, which is $35 to $40 for a specialist. We know a recent case of a friend of ours who needed a pacemaker, and they went into the hospital and got a pacemaker for $3,000, the equivalent to $3,000. Last time I heard, a pacemaker in the U.S. is minimum 25 grand. So self-insuring here is the way to go with some people with some coin in the bank, and especially if they have some supplementary insurance that might pay you a percentage back. The biggest, one of the more popular things here now is air ambulance, because so many Americans, retired Americans, do have some type of Medicare or Medicaid. So what they do is just have insurance for an air ambulance. So something happens, they get stabilized, and they're flown back to their home state, home city, and they're put into the hospital there.
Wow. Interesting. What I have is we self-insure as well, but we do have catastrophic insurance here in Mexico for something big. So if something major goes wrong, we get covered up to with a deductible. But mostly, like you said, we go to the doctor, we spend $10, $20. And what people don't realize here at the doctor, you might sit with the doctor for an hour, and not a nurse, but an actual doctor, sit and talk about family, talk about what's going on with you. They hang out with you. It's a totally different experience culturally from the United States experience.
Oh, for sure. I recently, about a year ago, had a motorcycle accident and I needed knee surgery. The surgeon, I was actually texting back and forth with the surgeon before the surgery and after. I was actually 3 weeks after my surgery. I was up in Los Angeles, of all places, at Magic Mountain walking around. I got a text asking how I was, knee holding out.
Wow, right?
Incredible. And that surgery was the equivalent of 40,000 pesos, which is like $2,000. This was a top rate knee surgeon. I've never had a problem with my knee since the surgery.
Wow. Let me give you another example that was very interesting. My son was broke his backbone, and he was in the hospital for 10 days. And, he wanted a second opinion and so I called one of our friends who's a doctor. He actually came to the hospital, helped my son out for hours in the hospital room. And then I asked him how much the bill, and he just basically told me nothing. He goes, "Don't worry about it. I just came to help." So there's a certain culture of helping here that's missing in the U.S. And I can't speak of Canada, but in the U.S., you usually go to the doctor, sit in the waiting room for hours. You see the nurse, talk to her for another 20 minutes, and then you see the doctor for 5 minutes, and that's about it. It's not like that in Mexico. It's a very different experience. It's a very personal experience. Agree?
Totally agreed. Mexico culture is, you always take care of your fellow human being, especially the elderly. I go into a doctor, and not only does the doctor sit with me and find out what's wrong and best way to address the issue that will be at hand, but they also tell you about preventative. I'm Canadian. Who in Canada tells you about preventative medical these days? Nobody. Here, you just get that caring all the way around from, pre-condition to after you're healthy, right? It's just more care, and it's just the way the culture is.
Right. Very, very unique and very, well, maybe it's not unique. You could say it's old school. Maybe it's America 1950s. Maybe you can say that. Is that fair?
Oh, that's for sure. Your old country farm doctor that you had in the 50s that would run out to your house and take care of you and, check to make sure your horse is okay too. That's the kind of service you get out here. Doctors here still make house calls. Where do you get house calls anywhere else, right?
Yeah, let me verify that one. My daughter Jeanette had an asthma attack, and the doctor came to the house. I was like, "What are you doing here, man?" Unbelievable service. So, just all around. If anybody listening out there is worried about healthcare, don't be. Please don't. It's incorrect. Whatever information you're getting is completely incorrect. We have great hospitals, especially Guadalajara is the center for the medical schools. Is that correct?
One of the best medical schools in Latin America is in fact the University of Guadalajara. Students come from all over the world to study at this school. It's top rate. When they used to have a show, I don't know if you remember the show they had in the U.S. where it was called Emergency 911, and they visited different emergency rooms all over the country. Well, here they had a similar show, and all the hospitals they visited in Mexico were here in Guadalajara.
Wow, very interesting. So Guadalajara's got some amazing medical institutions, and the costs are low. So again, anybody listening out there worrying, don't. Just come to Mexico, self-insure, and maybe consider getting the air ambulance issue if that concerns you a lot. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Maybe get some catastrophic insurance. So kind of look at all that and see what works out for you. But don't fear the medical industry in Mexico. It's outstanding. And Kevin's been around for 18 years. Personally, I've been around for about the same time in Mexico. So you're talking about 36 years of experience in Mexico together. And we're telling you, hey, it's awesome. So just hang in there. You know what I mean? Agree?
Totally agreed. I moved down here to help somebody start a business, and I had a leave of absence for 6 months. And I was here about 3 weeks and knew I never wanted to leave and haven't.
That's a heck of a story. I mean, your personal story is very interesting. So you were in Canada, meandering around the world in Canada, going from place to place, right? I remember telling me you were a car salesman. Is that right?
Well, that was one of the many jobs. Job before I left, I was actually selling computer network to small to medium-sized companies, and doing very well, paying my 50% income tax. And I had this opportunity to leave, and I took it. The door opened, and I took it, and I've never looked back. Anyone who's ever asked me, why, do I have any regrets? Do I ever want to go back to Canada? No regrets. No, I have no intention of going back to Canada except to visit family and friends. And when I do, I can't wait to get back here.
And now, do you miss the snow?
Oh, come on. There's. If you open up the English language dictionary, you can't find the proper words that define how much I don't snow.
Well, if you do miss the snow, on a good day in Lake Chapala, if you're high up in the mountain, you can see the Colima volcano, and that actually has a little bit of snow on top of it, right?
Yeah, certain times of the year, generally in January, February, you'll see snow on top of that mountain from my terrace actually at home.
So that satisfies your little missing of snow, maybe?
More than enough. And I can go on the internet and look at all kinds of beautiful pictures of snow.
And just not get cold, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, let's talk about housing again, because I think a lot of people come down and have misconceptions about housing. You can rent, you can buy, you can actually buy a lot and build. What's going on with housing in Lake Chapala? Now let's talk about Lake Chapala, because there is a town called Chapala. There's a town called Ajijic. There's a town called San Juan Cosla and Jocotepec. Those are totally different towns within 15, 20 minutes of each other. Tell us the difference in prices and lifestyles in each different location and what someone can expect.
Well, there are four, like you said, there are four major towns on this side of the lake that the foreigners like to frequent. You mentioned Ajijic. That is probably the most popular and the most scenic, the most beautiful, and it's the most expensive. You can get rental properties anywhere from $400 here a month, which don't expect a whole lot, up to $1,500 a month. The average is probably $600 to $700 for a nice 1 or 2 bedroom home. As far as real estate in this area, same thing. The prices can range anywhere from a new home for 79 grand in a new development, but it's just a small home, up to $1 million, depending on where you go. And then as you move out from this center to Chapala, San Juan Cosala, and Jocotepec, the prices they vary and they go lower from there. Only because there's fewer foreigners there that are catered to, so you get more of the Mexican culture experience, but that also reduces land values and rental values. I know someone in Jocotepec that rents a beautiful home for $500 a month, man, and it's 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
So there's many ways to come to the area, to live in your area. You can live at very high, in a very high-end area, or you can live reduced cost if you're a retiree on a fixed income. Maybe Jocotepec or Chapala might be your choice. Is that fair to say that?
Oh, for sure. There's something for everybody here. We know people that are on pensions of $800, and they survive just fine. That's really on the low end of the scale, but that's why they're here. It's manageable here. And you get the wealthy retirees as well. They live in different divisions and stuff and beautiful homes. But there's something for everybody. I don't know anybody who's ever come here and wanted to be here that couldn't stay here.
Let's talk legality. Legality for living in Mexico. Tell us what a person has to do to either live in Mexico. Do they have to actually be a tourist? Do they have to file for residency? I know you've been involved in immigration for 15 years. So tell us what you know and what should somebody out there know about coming to Mexico to live.
Well, as I said, and you said, we've been here for a long time, been helping people with immigration from all over the world. And those seasoned travelers that have been all over the world, if you compare the immigration systems to any other country, Mexico is by far one of the easiest countries to come and live in or visit. If there's plenty of people that are here, they're called snowbirds. They come down to escape the cold in Canada and northern U.S. Then you have the sunbirds that escape the heat, believe it or not, from the southern U.S. because the temperatures are more temperate here. And those people come for 6 months or less, and they can just come and live on a tourist visa. It's very simple. You get the tourist visa at the airport or at the border when you cross, and you come on down, and it's good for 6 months. And after 6 months, you leave, you hand that tourist visa back in, and you just repeat the following year. If you do want to stay longer, there's 2 resident visas. One's called a temporary visa and one called a permanent visa. And they're just that. If you're only coming down temporary for a couple of years, you apply for that. If you're coming down permanently, you apply for the permanent. They're very simple. You start those procedures at any Mexican consulate on the planet, really. And as long as you qualify income-wise, you're granted a visa. So, for example, if you wanted to get the temporary visa, if you can show them that you have a monthly income of 24,200 pesos, which is like $1,250, you're granted temporary visa. If you want to get the permanent visa, if you can show them that you have a monthly income of $2,100, they'll grant you a permanent visa. Never have to deal with immigration again. It's unbelievable.
So now, how long does that process take for the permanent visa, the permanent residence card?
Well, the process in the States is very simple. You make the appointment with a Mexican consulate, or in Canada, anywhere in the world, you make your appointment, you go in with your documentation in the morning, and generally you walk out that afternoon with your visa. The process in Mexico is a little bit more involved. You have to apply for the actual card that you get, and that process in Mexico can take, on average about 6 weeks.
Wow, so that's actually pretty fast.
It's really fast, and the cost in the States to apply for the visa to come into Mexico is, I believe, $38 right now to apply up there. Then once you get here, the application for that first year or the permanent is around $600, which is 6,000 pesos, which is in the $300 range.
Wow.
If you do it yourself. If you hire someone to do it for you, there's obviously the fees for the service that will assist you. But, overall, when you look at the whole procedure, it's so simple, so cost effective, and worth every dime.
Wow. So this process in Mexico is actually streamlined from what it used to be maybe even 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, back then, if you want a residency visa, which was called inmigrado back then, that procedure took 5 years. You could still get the temporary visa easily enough. But dealing with immigration back then was pretty slick. But when you can think about getting your permanent visa now, one day up in the U.S. and then 6 weeks down here, it's crazy. It used to be 5 years for that process.
Holy cow, that's streamlined.
That's really streamlined, and it shows that Mexico relies on this tourism. They want that dollar here. They want us to retire here. It's good for them. It's healthy. It's introduce new cultures and new and house planning and house building, and everything just gets better.
Wow. So I would say Mexico is pretty dynamic now compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago. Would you say it's one of the best places to retire on planet Earth?
Well, I haven't been on planet Earth, so I can't make that determination. But I've read so many news articles, whether it be from Yahoo.com, whether it be from ABC, NBC. They all do these retirement segments on their website or online or even in the news. And, one of the top 3 destinations on all of them is always Mexico.
On that note, Kevin, I want to thank you for appearing on Punish Radio. We're going to get this out to all of our listeners and help give them the knowledge they need. And Kevin, thank you for sharing all your outstanding insights, your experience, your wisdom, and to help others around the world. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, my friend, anytime.
Good day, America! From the deserts to the sea, from the mountains to the snow, this concludes today's Johnny Punish Show. Produced by the Veterans Today Network and VTN Radio. Brought to you by HireVeterans.com, America's job board for U.S. veterans. I'm your host, Johnny Punish, wishing you an amazing day until we meet again.
I spent all my years fighting for a place.